And there we go. Well, kia ora, everybody. It's so nice to have you in today. I hope everybody is having a good day. And thank you so much for taking your lunch hour to come in and be with us today. We're just going to go ahead and get started. So, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei hui whakaherehere. Welcome everybody to this important hui. Ko Karen Workman, tōku ingoa, ko taku mahi ki Resale Royalties Aotearoa, toi Huarau. My name is Karen Workman, and I'm here today representing Resale Royalties Aotearoa, toi Huarau. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So I'd like to welcome everybody to today's informational session about the scheme that comes into effect on December 1st of this year. That's the Resale Royalty for Visual Artists Act of 2023. Today's session is going to be an introductory overview of the scheme and how it will operate. It's also to introduce you to Resale Royalties Aotearoa Toi Huarau, or RRA, as we like to shorten it, as the appointed administrator of the new legislation. So in this session, what I'm going to do is provide context and elementary information about what artist resale royalty covers and how it will be administered. If you were around a few weeks ago, we had a general session around this new legislation. So if you attended it at that time, much of what you hear today is going to be familiar, but today we're focused on how the art market professionals will be affected. Before we get into the meat of the thing, I'd like to first mihi to and introduce Sam Irvin, the Chief Executive of Copyright Licensing, to say a few words. So, Sam, up to you to unmute yourself, and off we go.
Here we go, Karen. Kia ora tātou, ko Sam Irvin, tāku ingoa. As Karen said, I'm the CE of Copyright Licensing New Zealand, and also now of Resale Royalty Aotearoa Toi Huarau. And it's really good to be with you all today. Just a little bit about who we are and how we got here. So for those of you that don't know, CLNZ we're a not-for-profit organisation. Our shareholders are the Publishers Association of New Zealand and the New Zealand Society of Authors. We have a board made up of independent directors and shareholder directors. And we also have a visual arts advisor on the board, and we also have a visual arts working group that we refer to. We've been representing and advocating for New Zealand creators since 1988, so nearly 40 years now. And then more recently, we started representing visual artists with the Auction House licensing scheme, and have developed a close relationship with visual artists and with the sector through with auction houses. So we've been very successful in that, and it's working well. How did we get here? So last year we took part in the contestable process managed by the ministry, and as a result of that, we were appointed as the collective management organisation to administer the artist resale royalty scheme that came about as a result of legislation that was a result of the free trade agreement with the EU and the UK. I guess it's fair to say that we were probably chosen because of our experience that we already have in collecting and distributing royalties to original creators. So as I said, we've been doing that since 1988. So we've got a long history of doing that successfully, and therefore there's some confidence in that process that we'll be able to do the same with artist resale royalty. And of course the burgeoning relationship that we had with the visual arts sector, both visual artists and also the art market professionals. So after the appointment of the minister earlier this year, we set about building the new company and to deliver the scheme and developing the processes to support that work. It's going very well. We haven't had a huge amount of time to do it, but we're very practiced in what we do. So we'll be ready to go by the time that the scheme launches on December the 1st. And just in terms of governance for this Resale Royalty Aotearoa, we have 2 independent directors who are from CLNZ, and we'll also have a visual arts director who we're in the process of appointing at the moment. So we'll have representation from the sector. Back to you, Karen. Ka pai.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Sam, for those words and for explaining the whakapapa and the kaupapa of RRA. So the order of today is to explain the scheme, and then we're going to answer some pre-submitted questions. To be mindful of everyone's time today, we won't be taking questions from the chat, but if you do have a question, later I'll give you the web address. And Rosa, if you could just pop the link into the chat where people can go to the website and submit a question, that would be great. You can submit questions there and they will be answered directly back to you. And many of those questions are going to make their way onto the FAQ section of the website, as we all are starting to understand the legislation and what our responsibilities and roles are. So as you know, we're here today to talk about the Resale Royalty for Visual Artists Act of 2023. The idea of resale royalty in New Zealand isn't new. Some of you are aware of and may have been involved when it was first introduced, maybe way back in 2008. And I just want to acknowledge the impact of that particular action. The proposal didn't make too much progress at that time, and the idea was reintroduced as a potential amendment to the Copyright Act in 2018 or around 2018. The Copyright Act review that was underway at that time was suspended. I think there were a few other events of 2020 that kind of eclipsed the Copyright Act review. And so there was no forward motion on that talk of a resale royalty scheme. However, here we are now with this new legislation coming to play, as Sam said, on the back of the most recent free trade agreement negotiations with the UK and with the EU. And as part of that free trade agreement, the government committed to establishing an artist resale royalty scheme. And this scheme will come into effect on December 1st of this year. So as Sam said, Resale Royalties Aotearoa is the not-for-profit organisation that's been appointed to administer the scheme and to help everybody understand the legislation and the regulations. I just want to remind you that sale of an artwork does not usually include the sale of copyright. In other words, when an artist sells a painting, they usually retain the copyright associated with it. So that means that while someone else owns the physical work, the artist keeps the right to make copies and to use that work for their own gain. Because artist resale royalty is about the resale of an artwork, the ownership of copyright in a work is not affected by the scheme. So I'm not going to talk more about copyright today. If you want to know more, CLNZ has a lot of resources and workshops where you can learn more. So the concept of artist resale royalty had its beginnings way back in France with this painting called L'Angelus by Jean-Francois Millet. It was originally commissioned and then it was first sold for 1,000 francs in 1860. And then it was resold after his death in 1889 for a whopping 553,000 francs. So, and that price was, they got that price during a bidding war between the Louvre and the American Art Association. Now, Millet's family were penniless at the time of that resale, and as France is wont to do, there was a public outcry and petitioning for protective legislation for artists, and so the French introduced droit de suite, or artist resale right, in 1920. Now, since that time, a lot of countries have added it, and the 2021 census of resale right throughout the world showed that about 104 countries had resale right in their legislations, including 30 out of the 38 OECD countries. So we're joining those ranks this year. So while it's new to us, it's not new to the world. There are many people or parties involved in the buying and selling of artwork. And the Act gives us a definition for this term, art market professionals. And you can see it there, it's taken directly from the Act. Basically what it says is that if you or your business functions as an auction house, an art dealer, an art consultant, an art gallery, or is otherwise in the business of dealing in visual artworks, then you would be considered to be an art market professional. These are other terms that you'll find being used, buyers and sellers. Clearly, those are the parties or the people who buy and sell artwork, which includes collectors, and successors, who are often the descendants of the artist, but may be anyone to whom the artist has left the resale rights to their work. So those are two other terms that you'll see popping up on the website and in the resources that we have. In essence, this new legislation gives visual artists the right to receive a royalty payment whenever there's a qualifying resale of their original artwork. And we'll go into what that means a little bit more. So let's just make sure we understand the concept and the context, the context in which the artist resale royalty scheme applies. So the context is this. First of all, your artist creates a work and sells it to buyer A. Sometime later, buyer A sells that work to buyer B. That sale is a resale, and clearly there could be any number of resales over time. Now, the art could be listed and sold through an art market professional, for example, an auction house or a dealer or a gallery, or perhaps it's a sale that doesn't involve an art market professional. In any case, every sale after the first sale is a resale. Now, for the scheme to apply, the resale price must be at least $2,000. And then 5% of the resale value is deposited with resale royalties Aotearoa, RRA, as the royalty payment. RRA will retain one of those percentage points for administration, and the other 4% gets passed through to the original artist, or if they're deceased, to their estate. It's not every artist though, so we have to look at which artists are eligible. To be eligible, artists must be New Zealand citizens or residents. They can also be a citizen or a resident of a reciprocating country that also has an artist resale royalty scheme. So right now we've got reciprocal agreement negotiations underway with the UK and with Australia. And we anticipate an expansion of reciprocal agreements with other countries in the future. If the original artist is deceased and it's within 50 years of the end of the calendar year of their death, a successor who's inherited the rights will also be eligible. Those successors also have to be citizens or residents of either New Zealand or a reciprocating country. In addition, the work must meet the definition of an original visual artwork. And you can see that the range of visual artwork specified in the Resale Royalty for Visual Artists Act is fairly wide. So this wording is taken directly from the Act, and just for clarity, the artwork does not have to be a cultural expression of Māori or Pacific peoples. However, it does include cultural work when it's expressed in these different art forms. So any work that fits into these categories, whether or not it is a cultural expression, qualifies as an original visual artwork. What's excluded are these things here. We've got buildings, dramatic or musical works, and that's dramatic or musical as specified by the Copyright Act, which means scripts and screenplays, scores, and other musical notation, and literature or literary works, unless that written work contains a visual artwork. Importantly, original means that the artist created or authorized the creation of the artwork, and that it's one of a limited number of copies. And that word limited there means that the artist deliberately chose to only create a certain number of that work. So now that we know which artists are eligible and what kind of original visual artwork is concluded, let's talk about what qualifying resale means, because again, not all resales will qualify. So if we do have an original visual artwork made by an eligible artist and it's been resold for $2,000 or more, there are two situations under which that resale qualifies and the scheme kicks in. So our first situation is this, the professional qualifying resale. So if at least one of the parties involved in the resale is an art market professional, whether that's a dealer, a gallery, an auctioneer, or someone else professionally engaged in the art market, for example, an art consultant who's there to advise on valuation, or if one of the parties is a part of the GLAM sector, meaning a publicly funded art gallery, library, archive, or museum that collects and displays artworks, then this is a professional qualifying resale. So in a professional qualifying resale, it's going to be the art market professionals who report the sale to RRA, and then they are obligated to pay the resale royalty to RRA. And I'd just like to take a second to acknowledge those businesses and all of you who are here today who are in this business. The expertise and experience of our art market professionals is a huge factor in setting the standards and the practices and the prices in the art market. So your influence in the valuation and in the resale of artworks is significant. And we want to just recognize that. And we recognize too that those sales directly impact the ability of artists' work to increase in value over time. We also want to acknowledge and we understand that the scheme is a new thing to incorporate into your business. And I'd like to thank all of our industry professionals for working with us so far to make the scheme operate as smoothly as possible. The other situation is this one here, a voluntary qualifying resale. So if the resale transaction does not involve any art market professionals or any of the GLAM organizations, but the parties involved decide and agree that it will be a qualifying resale, then this is a voluntary qualifying resale. In this situation, the parties involved make and put 3 decisions in writing. So they, first of all, agree that this is a qualifying resale. They agree on a resale royalty, which can be any amount that they choose. And then they agree on whose responsibility it is to provide the information and the payment to RRA. So if it's not a professional qualifying resale, it is most likely a voluntary qualifying resale. I think now is a good time to make a distinction between these 2 schemes, the auction house licensing scheme and the artist resale royalty. And now, as Sam's already indicated, Copyright Licensing New Zealand has for decades issued licenses to organizations and institutions. That helps to administrate compliance with copyright law, and it gives the license holders a greater access in terms of printed material like books and other publications. And through that licensing scheme, royalties are paid back to authors on the use and reproduction of their work. So the auction house licensing scheme works pretty much in the same way. Under the auction house licensing scheme, auction houses pay for a license in order to reproduce artists' works in their catalogues, which are then made available in print and online. And as the works used are reported by auction houses, artists get a royalty for the appearance and reproduction of their artwork. And that process is managed by Copyright Licensing New Zealand. Artist resale royalty is managed by RRA, and the operations are separate from CLNZ. So while auction houses are involved in both programs, auction house licensing compensates the reproduction of an artwork, while artist resale royalty covers the resale of an artwork, and the administration is different. So no matter whether it's a voluntary or professional qualifying resale, the sale must be reported in writing and the royalty must be deposited with RRA within 60 days. When we've been notified and the royalties been deposited, RRA is going to contact the artist to send them their portion of the royalty. And you can see here, I've said in a timely manner, and that's because sometimes there are challenges with finding accurate contact information for an artist, and particularly for an artist's estate. We do have an experienced and dedicated team of researchers, and their purpose is to track down the right people in order to distribute the royalties. When they've been contacted, the artist can accept or decline all or a part of that royalty payment. If the artist declines, the royalty goes straight to the cultural fund that's going to be established to support and contribute to the careers of visual artists. So with every future resale, the artist gets to choose to accept or decline that royalty. In other words, declining one royalty payment doesn't mean an artist can't accept royalties from future resales. Now, if we can't find the artist, that money is going to be kept in reserve for 6 years. Now, if 6 years passes and it goes unclaimed or it's been declined, then those royalties will also go into that cultural fund. And that's the process that is going to happen with this whole scheme. The best way, if you're an artist, the best way to make sure that the royalties get to you in a timely manner is to register as an artist or a successor on the website, as you see here, resaleroyalties.co.nz. You'll be prompted to fill out the short form. You may be required to upload proof of identity, like a driver's license. If you have questions about what's being asked for and why, we have a privacy policy on the website that you can refer to. Filling out this form will only take a few minutes, but you'll be sure that you're in the best place to stay informed. And if you're an artist, to receive royalties as the scheme rolls out. There's this very robust FAQ section also that's kept up to date. So we understand the scheme is new for everybody, and that list of questions serves to address concerns directly and efficiently. Registering on the website is also the best way to stay up to date if you're an art market professional or a GLAM sector organization. You're going to get clear and current information around the scheme, around your liabilities, and we're going to provide you with the support that you need to navigate your legal obligations. So even if you're not sure if this legislation applies to you today, it may do so in the future. So we want to make sure that everybody has the tools and the information needed to be in compliance with the legislation and the regulations. What you can also expect to see as we get closer to December 1st is an increase in functionality on this website, along with more information, guides to FAQs and so on, other resources. And there'll be also some short videos that highlight some of our key art market professionals. Specifically for you on the website, you'll find a download link to a guide for art market professionals. Now, there's going to be a lot of additional information that and we don't have time for today in this workshop, but there's a lot of information there. It's written very nicely. It's as clean and clear and succinct as possible. What you'll find there is how the scheme affects you, the process for reporting, paying, and distributing the royalty, and the other support services we offer, along with resource guides, flow charts and checklists and so on, and other reference tools. So you might want to pop along to the website there and see, look for those things. And you can see there, when you go to the FAQ page, on the left-hand side there, you can see a place where you can contact us directly. If you'd like to read the legislation and regulations for yourself, you can find them on the New Zealand legislation website, or you can search these titles right here. Now, we've had a number of pre-submitted questions, and so that's what we're going to move on to now. We've collated the submitted questions into shorter versions. If you don't find the answer that you need, though, that you go ahead and use that contact form that I've already referred to, and you'll get a direct response. But we're going to move to the questions now, and I'm going to invite Sam and Daniel. Daniel, maybe if you could introduce yourself also, we will go ahead and get to these questions. Let me ask the question first, and then Daniel or Sam, you can go ahead and answer the questions. So the first question: how will the scheme work for galleries who often buy at auction to resell? Will the royalty be payable twice, or will it be treated like GST?
Kia ora tātou, everyone. My name's Daniel Watterson. I'm the Contracts and Policy Manager at CLNZ. I've got a legal background, but also I'm a performing artist, so I do come at creative rights with sort of both advantages. My pleasure to be here today. I'll take that question, Karen. So, for galleries who buy at auction and resell, will the royalty be payable twice? So a royalty is payable on every resale. And in that example, how many resales are there? There's 2. So the royalty will be payable twice. But as to who is liable for that royalty, that's set out really clearly in the legislation at section 17. So generally speaking, the seller is always liable. And then another party will be jointly liable. And in most cases, that's the seller's agent. So in that example, gallery buys from an auction house. The auction house is acting on behalf of the seller. The 2 liable parties are the seller and their agent, the auction house. So in that example, it's very unlikely the gallery will pay when it's purchasing. Different story when it comes to sell. Of course, if there are no agents involved, then what section 17 says is the buyer will be jointly liable. So say a gallery buys from another gallery, they don't involve any other agents, then the selling gallery and the buying gallery are going to be jointly liable. And how they decide that liability as between themselves will be a matter that they can freely decide.
That's great, thank you.
Next question.
Next question: is the royalty calculated from total funds collected from the buyer or total funds paid to the seller? In other words, how is the resale value calculated?
Kia ora. Yeah, I'll take this one as well, if that's right, Sam.
Sure.
So the royalty is calculated on what is called resale value. And that again is a term that's defined in the Act. And you'll find this in section 10. And I should say, before I ramble on any further, all of this information is in our FAQs. So please don't hesitate. We're updating those as the questions come in, but these questions, for example, are there. So resale value, section 10. Resale value is what the contract says, the resale contract says, is the value of the consideration given. So that might be, in most cases, New Zealand dollars, in some cases, goods and services exchanged, and in some cases, foreign currency. Now, what's really clear is that it excludes things like GST, taxes, levies, costs, commissions, premiums, all that sort of stuff. And that's all essentially for the art market professionals to arrange privately as between themselves. So hopefully that's clear. Resale value is the consideration given under the contract. I think I've answered that question.
Yep, good. I think that's clear. Question number 3, will Trade Me be considered an art market professional?
Yeah, I can take that one, Karen. So how this will work is Trade Me is a platform, and if an art market professional is using the platform to complete a trade, then yes, it will be included as a qualifying resale. So that's the definition there. We'll include that and update that in the FAQ, but that's the latest we have on Trade Me and its use as a platform.
Great. Question 4, for art consultants, how will it work if they facilitate a transaction between 2 private individuals?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So if an art consultant is involved in the resale, then it becomes, by definition, a professional resale. So that means, provided that the other criteria are met for a qualifying resale, for instance, the value threshold, the scheme will apply.
Question 5, does the royalty factor in the art market professionals' costs, and is that fair?
Yeah, so this sort of, I suppose, follows on from question 2. So it doesn't factor the A&P's costs. So that's very clear. It's a single predictable amount, which is a percentage of the resale value. As to fairness, of course, that can feel like a subjective thing, but I think one thing we will say is that because it's excluded from resale value, that leaves it up to the parties to the resale contract to determine, in the circumstances that apply as between them, who, how, and what those costs and premiums are and how they'll be shared. So that freedom of contract is what produces fairness for you. You can imagine on the flip side, it's not really the function or really the ability of legislation to either prescribe or prejudice what those commercial arrangements are. Then, of course, the fairness for the artist is that whatever it is that those parties decide privately as between themselves won't have a prejudicial effect on the royalty for the artist, so it remains transparent for them as well.
Great. That's beautiful. Question 6, can sales prior to December 1st, 2024 be charged a royalty retrospectively?
I'll answer that. That's easy.
Oh, yes.
Easy one. Sorry, Daniel. No, the simple answer is no, they can't. So the scheme comes into effect from December the 1st. So sales after that, on or after December the 1st will qualify, but not before.
Yep. I think that's pretty clear and straightforward. Thank you so much for answering those questions. That is really helpful. As we've said, we keep saying it, there are FAQs on the website. We understand that this is a new thing and we have a lot of scenarios that we are trying to figure out how this all applies to. So don't hesitate to jump on there. If you don't see the answer that you're looking for, please just ask the question. It'll help us. It'll give us some guidance around what you are looking for, and we are here to help you. We are administering this scheme, and we are here to help you understand the legislation and the regulations and how they apply to you. I want to leave you with this translation for Toi Huarau. And this is the name we've been given. It was inspired by and based on the concept of mutual benefit for the artist and the art market. And importantly, the practice of providing legacy value for the artist's family. So Toi Huarau, the art of many benefits for many people. And I think that is it for us today. I'd like to thank my colleagues for being present and for answering the questions, and thank you all for coming to the meeting today. We do appreciate the time that you've taken to be here, either live today or watching the replay, and it's been our honor to host you and to share this information about the Resale Royalty for Visual Artists Act and the scheme. Obviously, there's more to come as it all comes into effect. Please do go to the website, register. You're not gonna get spammed, and it's not going to cost you anything. Follow us on social media so you can stay up to date and in the know. And I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully you can get back to your lunches, and hopefully this was helpful to you. Huri noa e te whare, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, mā te wā, and have a good rest of the day.